Media. Former CIA Deputy Chief of Staff Nick Shapiro tweeted a statement from his former boss, Mr. Brennan. Former CIA Director Brennan is deeply saddened and angered at Trump's despicable display of self-aggrandizement in front of CIA's Memorial Wall of Agency heroes. Brennan says that Trump should be ashamed of himself. Texas Congressman Michael McCaul is the House Homeland Security Committee Chairman, and he joins us right now. Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Your reaction to what went down at the CIA?
You know, I watched the speech. I thought it was very significant that the very first stop of this new president was to go see the Central Intelligence Agency, to reach out to them, to applaud them for their efforts. He basically said they are probably the most important agency within the federal government in terms of foreign policy and fighting this war on terror, which in his inaugural address said, for the first time now, I'm hearing a president say the words radical Islamist terrorism.
That's right. So can President Trump bring the country together and be on the same page inside, externally and internally? In other words, what the public sees and what the people inside see on national security. This is critical.
Well, I think if you look at who he has appointed to the national security posts, he's appointed a very strong team. General Mattis, one of the most highly respected generals in the military. General Kelly, who will be the Homeland Security Secretary. I will be working very closely with him in moving President Trump's agenda forward, including the security at the border and other issues like cybersecurity. And then Mike Pompeo, a colleague of mine, traveled with overseas to the Middle East and Northern Africa, knows the intelligence community, has their respect. And I think you're going to see a very strong national security policy moving forward, not unlike President Obama, who led from behind for so many years and let the terrorists win. I think you're going to see a change now where we're going to start winning against the terrorists.
Yeah, it's interesting because President Trump went to the CIA alone. You would have thought that he brings, Secretary Pompeo, but of course we're waiting on the confirmation process. So what's your take on what's happening here with the confirmation process? What do you think the timeline looks like in terms of this stalling that seems to be happening within the Senate?
Well, I think within the next 2 weeks, I hope. I mean, particularly the national security posts need to be confirmed immediately. I was glad to see that Mattis and Kelly got confirmed on the day of the inauguration. But to hold up Mike Pompeo's nomination to be the director of the CIA is irresponsible. There's absolutely no reason why he should be confirmed immediately. It's one of the most important, our intelligence community needs to go forward with a leader. So I think it's irresponsible to stop that process.
All right, so what do you want to see in terms of executive orders this week as it relates to immigration? I mean, obviously our borders, one of the key talking points on the campaign trail, and one of the critical issues to the American people right now. What do you want to see President Trump do in the way of executive orders and policy in the coming 100 days?
Well, I think you allow, Border Patrol and ICE to do their jobs, to basically mandate that you have to honor a federal ICE detainer if you have someone in custody that is under the detention of ICE. That is federal law. Respect federal law in these sanctuary cities. I think is a big step forward. And I think also the thing I'll be working closely with General Kelly on will be how are we going to secure this border? How are we going to construct this fencing? He also talked about aviation assets, technology. How are we going to get that border secure down there to stop the criminals, the drug dealers, and potential terrorists from coming into the country? I think that's going to be, perhaps from where I stand and where I think General Kelly stands, probably the #1 priority moving forward in the next several months.
What do you say it is? What's the answer to that?
Well, we have a Secure Fence Act. We need to complete that authorization bill that we passed. We need to appropriate the rest of that. But also, I think there are many places where we can erect a very high level fencing, some bricks and mortar, but a lot of aviation and technology assets. I talked to the governor of my state about the Rio Grande River and the challenges that presents, but it can be done. And I think the most exciting thing for us as Republicans is that we don't have this divided government anymore, that for the first time now in 8 years, we can actually move forward and get things done like getting that border secure once and for all.
Yeah, you have a window of opportunity here. A lot of expectations, Congressman. We'll be watching. Good to see you, sir.
You too, Maria.
Thanks so much, Congressman Michael McCaul there. Up next, former presidential candidate Carly Fiorina joins us, weighing in on what to expect in the coming weeks as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. Back in a moment. Welcome back. President Trump taking the reins of power with just 2 members of his cabinet confirmed. The Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security have been confirmed. They are now sworn in and ready to go to work. Many cabinet nominees, though, are still playing the waiting game. You just heard Newt Gingrich saying that the Senate is stalling. The president will need all of his cabinet in place sooner rather than later, as he has a very ambitious agenda for his first 100 days. Joining me right now is Carly Fiorina, a former 2016 presidential candidate and the former CEO of Hewlett-Packard. And Carly, it is good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Great to be with you, Maria. Thanks for having me.
I want to get to what you think is possible in the first 100 days and how you see these confirmation hearings. But let me start with the Women's March, because you're seeing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of women march in several cities across the country, dozens of cities actually, to protest what candidate Trump has said in the past. You're a woman. Were you at these marches?
I was not, and I certainly have been public in my criticism of some of the things that Donald Trump has said in the past. On the other hand, sadly, pro-life women were not welcome at this march. I'm pro-life. So my conclusion about this march, while I certainly agree with these women that women's rights are human rights, apparently they don't believe in the right of a woman to choose what she is going to believe. Unfortunately, this was a group of women who have, of course, the right to protest, but I think what they were protesting is they don't like Donald Trump. They wanted Hillary Clinton to win, and the long litany of progressive causes, whether it's a woman's right to choose right up until the last minute before her unborn child is born, or minimum wage increase, etc. So I don't happen to believe those things.
You know, one of the beautiful things about our country is our freedom of speech and the ability for people to get out and voice their opinion on things. But how disruptive is this now, while President Trump is actually beginning the work?
Well, it is disruptive, and I'm disappointed because I think what these women demonstrated, of course they have the right to protest, but apparently they are unable to separate the process of our freedom of elections and the institution of the presidency from their litany of causes. I think giving this president a little time would have been useful because, in fact, he hasn't done anything yet. He can't do anything yet, and perhaps they ought to wait and see if he is successful. I didn't vote for President Obama, but I wanted him to succeed, and I gave him a chance to succeed, and I hope that many of these women will as well.
Yeah, really well said, Carly. At the same time, you heard what Newt Gingrich said at the top of the show, that Senator Schumer is being petty, trying to stall the process in some of these confirmation hearings. He only has 2 secretaries confirmed at this point. What's your take on what's been going on in terms of these confirmation hearings?
Well, I think clearly the Democrats were looking for a pound of flesh to extract from this administration through cabinet appointees. I'm not sure they're going to get it. This is without a doubt a highly qualified group of nominees, and they clearly have gone through all of the processes. I think the ethical issues that are being raised are petty, frankly, and so I think President Trump will get his nominees confirmed, and I think the sooner the Democrats get on with it, perhaps the more credibility they will have when they get ready to stand up to something they claim is more important.
Yeah, we want to talk about what specifically will get done, because right now it's on repeal and replace Obamacare, and then we're going to move to tax reform. Carly, it's great to have you weigh in. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Maria.
We'll see you soon, Carly. Now to President Trump's tax plan. It looks to lessen the burden on you, the taxpayer, and business, particularly small business. When can we expect it to be approved by Congress, and what will it mean for you and your family? Grover Norquist is with me right now. He's the president of Americans for Tax Reform. Grover, it's good to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. We want you to get to the nitty-gritty, Grover. We wanted, to hear from Carly in terms of what is possible, but we really want you to do a deep dive in terms of what this tax reform package looks like. What do you expect?
Sure. First, understand that there's going to be 2 tax cuts. One is getting rid of $1 trillion in Obamacare. There are 20 taxes in Obamacare, including they increased capital gains taxes in Obamacare. When we abolish Obamacare, repeal it, and that is moving forward on reconciliation, that's $1 trillion tax cut. we tend to think of it as repealing Obamacare. It's a